All right. You might be able to guess who today's interview is, either from the picture or the name of this video that you just clicked, because I don't hide the names of videos. But today we're doing Yevon, and so here's the interview. How would you describe your triple triad play slash style? My play style is very individual. In closed games, when I get the first move, most of the games I start are random games. I just pick a card to get rid of it first. I get it back at the end of the match. To get it back at the end of the match. Sorry, there's some typos in this one. He said to fix it up, but I didn't want to read it in advance because I like coming to these fresh. So we're, I guess, gonna try to edit as we go. That's fine. Thank you so much to Yevon for doing this interview. But I think he's both identifying I want a card I can take back at the end, right? First turn, his last turn, I want to play things. I have an easy time recapturing myself. But also, I like the thought process of look at my hand of five cards and see which one I do not want. And looking for something useful to do with that card, I think is a very reasonable way to start a triple triad game. With the second move, I'm trying to build traps. It's like 50-50 win or lose. In open or handmade games is always a plan of playing the cards before the games start, but it always turns out different, so the individuality takes over, like in every random open game. Yeah, I think back in the old days with A, fewer rules, and B, fewer options for opponents' hands, you could play out the same hands and have them play out more similarly game to game. There's still definitely rule sets you can do that, but it's usually gonna find its own way, even if some patterns are consistent. Who is your most interesting opponent? My most interesting opponents are two for me. The first one is Turds. Every game with him is special. Closed games are always 50-50. He often finds a way to get a save in a game, which should be a win for me, but the same is true in the other direction. Every game is fun. In open games, it's similar. Always good games, but I would say he is the better open player. I also one thing I really like in general is when people um and something I think the triple triad community is very good at and some communities are not. Obviously not, the triple triad community varies, but just like respecting the skills other people have. I never got the people who go like I beat them and they suck. Like but then what was the achievement of beating them, right? Like yeah. Anyway, I like respectfulness of skill. The other one is Vid, a player I met in the early days when I started with TTA. We were both young, and we were just some German noobs at the time. We had good fights in some tournaments later, but at the beginning, he was the only guy I was talking to. I had no idea about this. My English wasn't good at that time, and I was happy I had someone to talk to in German. But that's not the important point. He evolved to a really good player. I didn't expect that more than 20 years ago, but I'm really happy for him. And for me, it's always nice to see that there is still one guy around who started at the same time I did. It's always neat when you get people beginning at the same time. Like Turds and Tezuka have similar starting numbers, and just like from looking at their tournament resumes, like they started playing tournaments at the same time. And Tezuka is the first one to break through and get some deep runs, but Turds is showing promise. He gets his first icon, and then Turds wins a tournament, and suddenly Turds is kind of ahead. But then Turds has a sort of rough patch, and Tezuka comes back and he starts going deep. And then Turd starts his incredible recent run, but Tezuka also gets his tournament championship recently. And there's been fun parallels to them. And if you look at Vid and Yevon, I mean, tournaments aren't everything, of course, but like Yevon is obviously the just clearly superior player in the early days, though Vid has some very nice runs as well. He gets like a semifinals in a TTAC, but Yevon gets a finals. And Vid himself has talked about not being good in those days. But he has really developed nicely as a player. I think I just agree with all of this. Who is your toughest opponent? I would separate it into past and current players. It was Sujiro, I would say. I can't remember any open games won against him. Maybe I did, but it felt like I always lost to him. I continue to be on the like Sujiro is historically good and didn't play that many tournaments. And if he had played a few more, we would be talking about him maybe in a different light. Maybe not. Maybe what it ends up is like people like MC and Nightwish and to some extent Akiyama just played kind of a similar number of tournaments, a little more, and achieved a little more in the tournaments they played. But yeah, I think sorry, I get distracted by past rankings. But I think there's the early days with Kaus winning a tournament, Broccoli, um some other really good players like Unfixable winning tournaments. But it's sort of but people sort of agree it's like Doc Evil, Nimloth, and Cookie, probably Cookie, as sort of the big three. And then I think Kamikaze and Sujiro take over. And right around the time of Doc Evil ending his run, um, is when Sujiro takes over. And I think then it's Kamikaze and Sujiro for a bit, and then it's Deli and Seto. Seto first, then it's Seto, and then Deli taking over. And then we get into what I think of as more modern times because that's when I showed up. And Yevon, when he made his TTAC finals in 2005, um, who was that finals against? That must have been Kamikaze. Yeah, it was Kamikaze. Was it? All right, I think it was Kamikaze. But yeah, that's right as Kamikaze and Sujiro are taking over. Anyways, I'm always a big fan of Sujiro. I always like when people credit his past achievements. From the current squad, it's you. In open games, I don't find a way to beat you, but it's always fun. Aw, thanks. What formation or move type do you like more than other players do? When I started playing, you got just a free deck of 25 cards from level 1 through 5, right? And they changed that by the time I showed up to level 1 through 4. But I think from the start to, I don't know when it stopped, it was level 1 through 5. Um, you could get along with starter packs as you had if you had a good level 5 hand. The common games were at that time level 1 through 5, same plus plus wall. I loved that rule set from the beginning. There were some 7147 cards in different combinations and some 3676 cards. When I talked to a friend, Meta, I just said try to get a T formation and the win is yours. If that doesn't work, go for a Z. Those were my absolute favorite formations for some years with a good level 5 hand. So I think same plus plus wall, like his time level 1 through 5 was same plus plus wall. In my time it was level 1 through 4. But it's just so important for like I know it's like a really like laming rule set and a lot of people don't like it. But I think it's really important to spend some time playing that so you just get an understanding of like locking in cards. I think that's a really important thing to have beaten into you. But Yevon is going on a more advanced level than that. He is understanding it's not just locking in cards here. We can set up formations. And I remembered in the I think this is in either the Ace interview or more likely in the top 10 ranking of old school players, where Ace talks about some of the old school players and he mentions, oh, I want to say it was CC Nail as the first person to realize like the T and Z formations, especially the T formation. Um, but I might be getting it wrong who it was. Apologies if so. But this sort of realization that like we can go beyond locking in cards and we can set up formations where we are guaranteed to have second play in different parts of the board and be the one to be able to lock in cards later. And level 1 through 5 is one of the places where that's going to be most effective because you have these unbelievably powerful sweeper cards. Right? 7/7/4s are just going to take anything in the direction they're facing. 6/7/6/3s are going to take so much depending on board texture, but pretty inevitably are going to be able to capture so many things. Um, and yeah, so Meta gets good a bit after Yevon, so it makes sense that Yevon would be a person. And Meta very well known for playing these level 1 through 5 sets, but it very interesting that Yevon was a player who inspired some of the strategy there for another player who ended up being a very dominant player on these level 1 through 5 rule sets. That's neat to hear about. And that's definitely a level where you're going to learn a lot of formational stuff because they are so dominant. Well, when I played level 1 through 4, I got really on the ball about like locking in cards and understanding sort of structurally where you wanted to go. But I did not develop as well as understand the sort of the next level up of positions where you are not in a rush to secure a card now because you can set up a formation that is at least as favorable as securing that card. This can be for either open or closed or answer for both. What formation or move type do you like less than other players do? I disliked the same formation too if I had an opponent who knew how to play it. Yeah, sure. In Z's and T's in level 1-5, you're just dead. Favorite way to meet a corner starter, a side starter, a center starter? Do you have a preferred starter type? Does that change between random and hand games? Does it change between open and closed? I haven't had a favorite starter type all these years. The easiest is the center. You can make the game wide open, and with a good hand, you have different corners to make Make your game a good game if your opponent allows it. I like corner starters in open games if the card is a safe spot. My favorite starter changes from every game to every rule set. In open games, I always try to find a safe way for my first card. If it's not possible, I try to ruin a safe card for my opponent. In closed games, it's just totally a poker game. So, again, apologies for so many asides, but one of the really fascinating things in the first few months of the return, like the first 6 months, is Yevon played a style that is completely different than the style he would play a couple years later. And if you look at him each year of Triple Triad, he changes more in the time we have records of than any other player I can notice. And like what his starters look like, what his replies to starters look like. Um, he is one of the most kind of just different phases, and he's had a success in a bunch of those runs. His TTAC run in or no, was it his Ultimecia? No, it was the TTAC run where he made the semis. I thought he just played superbly, and he was playing completely differently than he did in the first Open GB, where he came second and won just a ton of games. Um, and just completely different styles between those. But one thing I really love, and I talk about a lot when I talk about Yevon, is in that first GB, he played some center starters, occasional corner starters, and mostly aggressive side starters. And as he says, this is rule set and level dependent, so it's gonna and open close dependent. So it may have been that he thought that was particularly appropriate to the level in question. I don't remember what level it was. I want to say like somewhere in the 5-8 range. I don't think it was level 10. Um, I don't think it was level 5 either. So somewhere between 6 and 8 is my guess. Um, you can fact check me on that. But he was playing these side starters where he didn't have like a safe card next to it and it wasn't safe to 5. But similar to how I'm saying I want to deny my opponent's safety, he made sure they had nothing safe in either of the squares next to it. So if he goes in 8, they have no safety in 7 and 9. And often he would have something like sort of close to safety, either like he'd have safety in one of those squares, or he'd have something that was harder for them to play against because he had combo play. And it just made it really tricky for his opponents. And he induced so many errors and won so many games doing this. And it really, like, I've always been a hater on side starters, and also coming back after having not played for years. I think a lot of us, I mean, maybe this is just true of me, but I became more dogmatic. And I think I sort of evolved out of that now as I haven't been playing again. I'm getting more dogmatic again. The more you play, the more you realize there are different possibilities and to take them seriously. And the less you play, the more you kind of your standard understandings of the game take over your thinking, and you're just focused on, well, these two things are kind of the things that stick with you as understandings, and you stop seeing lots of little other possibilities. But Yevon playing so well with such an original starter type, I think if you look across past tournaments and you look for defensive side starters, various corner starters, weak, strong, whatever, center starters, like both center starters that set you up to have captures everywhere, or center starters where you have planned corner setups to set up big combos. All of these, I think, are much more frequent than aggressive side starters, where you are not trying to build out safety. You are playing a move where you deny the opponent's safety. And that really, I think, helped me start seeing the game more deeply again, was seeing Yevon play so well with a move that was alien to me. I was really inspired by that. Um, I try to ruin a safe card for my opponent. In closed games, it's just a total poker game. How do you spend time during the opponent move, thinking specific lines, thinking about general things, spacing out? The time between my moves depends on the game. If it's a tournament game, I'm just refreshing to have more time for my next move. If it's just a casual game, I'm looking in the news most of the time for soccer or NFL news and just forget about the game and lose to my opponent. Years ago, there was a category with most timeout wins and losses. I guess I would be in the top 3 at least. I asked Balls if he could remove the minus points for timeout losses because of that. Yeah, I think it's good to incentive, like in chess, when you play chess online, some percentage of opponents, it always, whatever percentage I estimate is higher than it is, but let's say like 5% of opponents, um, when you get a winning position or they screwed up, they will just let the time run out, whatever their clock is, and they will just waste your time. And this is this really unpleasant thing that happens in various communities. Um, and I think it's Triple Triad does something to disincentivize stuff like that, and also to disincentivize forgetting about the game. But you also do want people to be playing a lot of games, and Yevon is someone that very happily and very well plays a lot of games. And so I would be okay with removing the point loss for Yevon, but I would want to keep it for most other people. But obviously that's not feasible. What is your proudest Triple Triad moment? My proudest moment is not a specific one. There are some. Meta is one of my best friends. I just showed him the game. He never played FF8 and TTA. Wow. What a career for Meta, having never played FF8. I had no idea. I gotta ask Yevon if he can like force Meta to answer my interview questions because I have sent out interview requests to various players that didn't get a reply. Um, no, I never sent to him, but he disappeared so quickly. I really should have when he appeared. I'm gonna ask Yevon if he can bully Meta into doing that for me because that would be really nice. But that's so interesting that someone like not only into FF8 but got as good as Meta did. I mean, there are what like 30 some tournament winners, 30ish. Meta's one of them. Meta also has another finals right next to it, which means he has like one of the better peaks. Um, I normally have him around 25th all time, which is really impressive given he had a very short tournament run. Like, Meta is clearly a phenomenal player, and it's neat that he came out of just like, oh, my friend is into this game. I want to try it. This is neat. This is cool. We started, I told him the basics, and from that point, he was hard to beat. I was really proud he won SE Zell. Yeah, I've talked to Stuff a bit about Meta because a lot of the German speakers know each other. Let's just call Stuff German just to piss him off. So a lot of the Germans know each other, as I was saying. And he always describes Meta as just really solid and consistent and hard to beat as well. Uh, and but at the same time, uh, jobs don't give a ton of time, and but I love to play TTA. I'm just a casual player with no special trophies. 20 years ago, I would say it was the TTAC final. It was a great tournament at that time with TTA and TTN combined. I really loved that. Oh, I didn't know there was a combination. And I always knew that I wasn't the best in open games, but I just won my closed games. After all these years, I missed too many years because of my job. That's the reason, too, why I'm not around right now. I'm just happy to be part of TTA. I guess that's the proudest thing to me. My name will always stay on the leaderboards. Oh, that's so sweet. I love hearing things like that. Um, I think, okay, this is another aside, but I was listening to some interviews with various people in the Tetris community, and they were interviewing this guy named Terry Purcell. And I like Terry Purcell. I'm pro Terry Purcell. But he around 2014 was among the best players in the world. There's a 5 episode documentary that's really good called Best of 5 that goes through the 2014 World Championships. No, it must be 2013. I think 2013 World Championships. No, 2014. Anyways, doesn't matter. Say 2014 World Championships, and it's Terry Purcell's second year, and he's one of the, say, 5 best contenders for the title. You know, there's a clear top 2 contenders, and the documentary probably presents him as the third most likely contender. I would pick someone else for that honor, but given that that person didn't perform as well, it makes sense where the focus was. Um, but he was one of the best Tetris players in the world, and then as Tetris evolved over the next few years, he was very good for the next few years, and then some big jumps were made, and he didn't stay with the jumps, which is fine. Um, and he's doing this interview talking about it, and at almost every point he can, he goes, yeah, Tetris was a fun thing I did. I was never very invested in Tetris. I'm not very invested in Tetris. He gets kind of offended at one point when the interviewer says Tetris is your thing. And then he apologizes. Like, again, we're not being anti Terry Purcell. And I think actually the coolest thing in that interview was he was making some strong claims about things, and the interviewer was kind of going along and pushing back very weakly if they pushed back. And then there was a friend of his who was also on the line who was sort of part of the interview, and he pushed back on something, and Terry Purcell, like hard, and Terry Purcell instantly went, oh, like that's a really interesting, good point. And they had talked a bunch about how Terry likes philosophical discussions. And it was clearly something where it sounded to me like he was making a lot of strong, kind of unjustified claims. But as soon as someone suggested that was the case in a like also strong way, not in kind of pussyfooting around it, um, he was very like, "Oh, that's really interesting. I'd like to think about that." And that really helped me like him a lot more. But it was also clear he didn't want to be defined in anyone's mind as a Tetris player, right? It wasn't, and I hate to hear that. I think like getting into a game or whatever you get into and developing at it and working at it and getting really good at it is such a cool thing. And he was saying like I have done that for other things. Tetris is not what I do. It's these other things that are what I do. But all of them are cool. And I think like the desire to sort of, I don't know if he was doing this, but the desire to be like I'm too good for this or I have moved on is so uninteresting when instead you can be like proud of who you are and what you've worked on. And it's so clear from this Yevon interview that he loves being part of this community. He'd love to play more than he does. Um, and he just gets a lot out of it. And that's wonderful to hear from just a very strong veteran. And he hasn't won a tournament. That's when he says no special trophies, but he's won lots of smaller things. He has made that finals. He's had some deep runs recently in various things. This is a wonderful triple triad player and an extremely creative one who from the meta stories we can hear is clearly very comfortable with the fundamentals, but we can also see in a lot of his play is very interested in trying out ideas and really pushing them. And then when they don't appeal to him anymore, he moves on to trying new stuff. So really one of the more inventive kinds of players. I think a lot of the players we think of as more creative are very combo oriented players. And Yevon can be, but I think his creativity is in a different direction and is kind of unmatched in the community. All right. Should Delial be banned? Yes or absolutely. Sorry for the long Terry P story. This interview just feels like such a contrast to it of someone like disowning their presence in a community for someone else being like, I don't need to have a special trophy. I love this community and I wish I could be part of it more than I am. Should Delial be banned? Yes or absolutely. Delial should be banned for 1 day. He plays drunk better than others with a free mind, but it should be a ban for a time he isn't around. I really like him. Pretty nice guy and always fair. If we had more players like him, it would always be a great competition for every tournament. Yeah. Should Elemental be abolished? Yes, or immediately. Elemental can be fun, but if it's a rule for itself, the game needs no E, and the E don't need this game. It's the worst about the direct trade. Direct trade of the game. Direct trade was much better, and I would love sudden death for tournaments. Yeah, so I read that badly, but he's saying it's the worst rule, and if we were gonna bring in rules, he would much prefer sudden death or direct trade or other things that are not included in the iteration of Triple Triad we play to Elemental. What clan will always have a place in your heart? I wasn't really a clan player. I'm always a team player, but I never forced my way to join a clan. I never did tryouts to join a clan. I just played my games. I love all the players around. But I was in clans too, and I liked it. My top three clans were Fallen Angels, which was a German clan. I guess there is no one still around or active, but Divas, Kaus, still waiting and talking to get this back. And KOTR, Knights of the Round. At that time, we were a great clan. Sad that there was no one to bring them back. Um, yeah. I think Knights of the Round is from the era I have sort of covered least in my history understandings. Like I couldn't even tell you the years it ran. I think it's early TTA, but I could be off. Um, Player you think is the most underrated. The most underrated player is definitely Sachi. Great player who always talks about no skills, but he is the skill master. Who are your top 3 to 5 picks for GOAT? My GOATs are not just skill based. The first one is Delial. Everyone knows his scores. He is definitely number one. Turds. Always around, always good, hard to beat. Dalamar. The heart of all of this. In my eyes, he's the GOAT. Doomtrain. The greatest and nicest guy we all ever met around here. Rest in peace, my friend. Number 5. The actual community. That's the way to live and love this game. When did you start playing and what was your favorite era? Like most of us, I started playing at the beginning of FF8. I spent hours in it just to play Triple Triad. I loved the game from the beginning. We didn't have a good internet connection until 2002, so there were other games I played, but I was always looking for a Triple Triad online version. With TTA, it was perfect to me. I got my favorite card game online. I played every minute I had Triple Triad games. I maybe would say that was my favorite era. I spent so many hours in it just to play this awesome game. Actually, I have to blame myself for not being around. Like years ago. It's not the first time, but I will always be around. Maybe my triple triad start was the best era, but I also enjoyed the last years when I was a member of the fun team. For me, all the years were special. I could talk about this much longer. Like I said, this is just what a wonderful attitude about triple triad. Favorite rule set or rule sets? My favorite rule set when I started was same plus plus wall level 5, starter deck was 25 cards, max level 5. I am not proud of those free wins. I really love special rule sets, like tournament rule sets. Random games, or just to pick one or two decks to play. I don't like the common sets. My preferences have changed over the years. Have you met any other Triple Triad players in person? We had a German community years ago. We were all connected, but I haven't met most of them. There are two people. Meta, one of my best friends. I taught him the game, and everyone saw that he was a TTA monster. I met Foyer years ago. It was an absolutely great day. We were at a mini golf station. Don't know the English name. Maybe miniature golf, but I guess you know Happy Gilmore. Yeah, we do call it mini golf in English. We played 2 games with beer. We went over to a brewery in Cologne. It was a great day. The next day, my German friends were pissed off because they didn't get to meet Foyer. It was my fault. Nice. Good story, good connections. What is your biggest weakness as a player? I don't know, but I guess to underrate my opponent. And then something cool happened at the end of the interview. So I didn't read the rest of it, but I saw the last few messages, which is he was like, and are there any other questions I want to ask? Yeah, I have lots of other things I want to say, or at least like 4 things, 5 things. So he said, favorite Final Fantasy character? He says Cloud. Now, I'm going to try not to go on an offshoot about why I think Cloud is, uh, I guess, just the greatest FF character, but I agree on this. Um, I I talked a lot about this in my FF7 playthrough. We don't need to reiterate it here, but I think Cloud is a fascinating character that whether you want someone who strikes you as cool, because a lot of people find Cloud very cool. I do not, but a lot of people do. Um, Funny. He has a shocking number of like just goofy lines, like "Let's mosey" type stuff, or and also stuff where he is the butt of the joke. There's a variety of jokes around Cloud and also deep that like my interpretation of Cloud is that he is um a massive loser and desperately trying to imagine himself as someone who isn't. And I think that's such an interesting character. And who he acts like is what he thinks is cool. And him being kind of a jerk is him desperately trying to be cool early in the game. And him becoming something else is just so interesting to me. So yeah, I like this pick. Favorite summon, Bahamut, which I usually pronounce Bahamut, but I think it is Bahamut. Favorite card, Kyros, level 10, 676A, which is you gotta like the old school FF8 picks, and Kyros is such a versatile card. What do you wish for TTA in the future? An app for cell phones, and someone to make this awesome game more popular. Again, Yevon just loves TTA, and that's awesome. And I absolutely miss the TTA Center. And many special thanks to you. Please mention this too. Well, we have done so. Thanks so much to Yevon for doing this. I think his enjoyment of the game is really wonderful to see and infectious here. And I'm going to go do something I haven't done in ages. I'm going to go play a triple triad game because I feel like I feel enthused to do so. And if you've listened to this interview, maybe you too should go play a triple triad game.